fear and failure is in the air. It started with financial failure in 2008, and the repercussions rippled throughout the global economy. It then sprouted into fear of structural failure. Governments embroiled in Eurozone crises, politicians exposed in cash for honours, the media laid bare with their phone hacking scandal, and here in the City of London, any number of financial irregularities. But there is a growing concern too of systemic failure, global risks that don't distinguish the wealthy from the poor, such as the Earth's limited resources, an aging population, or of course the spectre of global warming. Well, my name is Andrew Stead, and before you all jump to call the Samaritans or Dignitas or maybe take a quick leap off Blackfriars Bridge, I'm actually going to talk to you this afternoon about our future of work by dispelling this modern narrative of fear and failure. And I'd like to do that by sharing with you three things. The first, my belief that we actually live in a golden age. The second, the implications of that golden age. And the third, how we might sustain and even improve that golden age into the future. And I'd like to do that with the help of my grandmother. And the reason I've solicited Granny's help is because actually next year, in March, she will be 100 years old. You can applaud, of course. Because it's my belief that in her lifetime, we folk in the West, at least, have gone from worrying about our survival needs to living in the safest and most prosperous times on Earth that have ever existed. We live in a golden era. When Granny was born, there was no electricity, no central heating, no iPad and no Twitter. But on the upside, there was no X Factor either. Life expectancy was 45, and the average annual income was only £72.11. Not enough these days to put a smile on your face with some Botox. Fast forward to today, where life expectancy is more than doubled to 92, and where our average annual incomes are £23,504, which when adjusted for the cost of living, means that our real wealth has increased over 4.25 times. We live in a golden era. Yet at the same time as we have industrialized and technologized and grown and created more wealth than ever before in human history, at the same time, evidence tells us we are no happier. The advent of economics and the Industrial Revolution changed humanity in 250 years more than in the previous 250,000 years. And we Brits should be proud. Our finest export has genuinely changed the lives of almost every single person on this planet, and squarely based on the Enlightenment ideas, the 18th century ideas of people like Jeremy Bentham, the ideas of collective happiness, the well-being of everyone. It's Bentham who said, we should create all the happiness we can create and remove all the misery we are able to remove. But what has happened since? Those strategies and structures that have served us so well for the last 2.5 centuries are the same strategies and structures that are struggling under fear and failure. So how do we overcome this problem? How do we think about our future happiness? Well, as luck would have it, one of the key elements of that industrial age was, of course, scientific thought. And we've all benefited again from the huge advances in science. In the last 10 to 15 years, there's been a gigantic explosion in the way we scientifically understand our happiness and well-being. Clever scientists can now show us which parts of the brain light up when we're happy and sad. Happiness has many benefits, the scientists tell us. Happy people are more positive. have better relationships, live longer. And in terms of our workplace, they perform better, take fewer sick days, and actually earn more income. So, what next for the future of work? I can stand here and tell you about the benefits of happiness itself because I myself are a worked example, if you like. I left the city some years ago, cast aside my city job and my suit, and started practicing some of these skills. I learned to love life again, and I can rather smugly tell you that I've never been happier and more fulfilled since then. But it's more than that, because these skills and this science can be taught to people and organizations. And so that's what I do. I help people and organizations love life again. Because it's my belief that this science and these skills will be considered not as nice-to-haves, but as absolute necessity. Because this vast increase in wealth that we've experienced over the last 100 years, that we just learned about from Granny, is already dramatically altering the way that our future work is being conducted. And the first is in the service sector, the rise of the service sector. And again, Britain is a great example of this, where today over 3/4 of our workers are employed in the service sector. 1 in 3 of us are classified as managers and professionals compared to 1 in 7 in 1912. And of course, people are even more central, even more important in service industries, in the service sector. They are the greatest opportunity for growth, for performance. They are the greatest asset. So the future organization must understand this more clearly, must see that business without people is merely process. The second change is in our changing attitudes to work. Our grandparents went out to produce a roof over their head and some food on the table. A job was something to be proud of rather than grumble about. But of course, we are less enamored with our employers, and Generation Y are less enamored still. So the future organization, if it is to survive, must overcome this again. They cannot continue with hire and fire. Rather, they must hire and fire up and hang on to their best employees if they are to survive. And finally, this increase in wealth has obviously changed our consumption patterns. For example, our car is no longer simply a means of transportation. It represents security, safety. It's a status symbol. So again, the future organization must start to connect with these changes. We are migrating from transactional, functional, financial value to emotional value. So the future organization must connect emotionally with its customers. And what's the best way of doing this? Through its people. How did Apple recently deal with its problematic Maps fiasco? The CEO, Tim Cook, reached out, made a personal apology, connected emotionally with his customers. So the future organization must connect emotionally. So these 3 changes that have come about from our increase in wealth are already placing us, the people, the workforce, even more centrally in the organization of the future. Yet at the same time, we know that more than 50% of us are dissatisfied with our work, looking for employment elsewhere. And that each year, we, the taxpayer, pay some £26 billion through workplace stress and anxiety. So what does all this mean for our future work and our golden era? Well, in my opinion, if our people and our organizations are to overcome this modern narrative of fear and failure, we might look back to the age when Granny was born and be pleased with our achievements of the last 100 years. We might also look back to the original tenets of the Industrial Revolution, those pioneers like Jeremy Bentham, and the ideas of collective happiness and collective well-being. We must also look forward and arm ourselves with this new science, these tools, this practical application that helps us love life again. Because my opinion that our future of work lies squarely in our well-being and our happiness, and that itself is the power to make a difference. Thank you.